James was 29 when his college roommate raised $2 million for an app that let people rate the silence in coffee shops. He remembers sitting in his apartment, scrolling through the funding announcement, feeling that specific kind of sick that comes from watching someone else win a game you didn't even know you were playing. James had ideas too. Everybody did. He just never had one that felt big enough to bet on. What he didn't know yet, what took him almost 4 years to fully understand, is that he was asking the wrong question the entire time. He kept looking for a brilliant idea. Nobody ever told him the money was hiding somewhere else entirely. In the businesses nobody wanted. Here's the belief almost everyone carries around without examining it. Wealth comes from a great idea. The right app. The right pitch. The thing nobody's thought of yet. It's a comforting belief, actually, because it means getting rich is mostly about being smart enough, or lucky enough, to spot something first. But spend enough time looking at how ordinary people actually build wealth. Not celebrities, not people with inheritances, just regular people with no head start, and a strange pattern shows up. Almost none of them got rich with a brilliant idea. They got rich with a boring idea that nobody else wanted to do. James's story starts on an ordinary Tuesday, almost 2 years after that coffee shop app made his old roommate a headline. And it starts, of all places, with a pressure washer. James was working an office job that paid enough to get by and not enough to get ahead. On weekends, mostly out of boredom, he'd started power washing his own driveway, then a neighbor's neighbors, because somebody mentioned it, and he had nothing better to do on a Saturday. He bought a pressure washer for about $2,000. Nothing fancy, no business plan, no pitch deck. Within 2 months, he had 6 regular customers paying him to keep their driveways and sidewalks clean. Nothing life-changing. Maybe $400 extra a month. But here's what caught his attention. It wasn't the money. It was how little competition he had. Anyone could buy a pressure washer. Almost nobody did. He started asking why. And the answer he landed on would end up defining the next 4 years of his life. Pressure washing isn't dangerous. It isn't expensive. It isn't complicated. It's just unglamorous. Nobody grows up dreaming about spraying grime off a parking lot. It doesn't make a good answer at a dinner party. And that, James realized, was exactly the point. The businesses people avoid aren't usually avoided because they're hard. They're avoided because they're embarrassing. Because they don't sound impressive. Because admitting you clean sidewalks for a living feels like admitting you gave up on something bigger. But demand for a clean sidewalk doesn't care how it makes you feel to provide it. When the economy's good, people wash things because they want them to look nice. When it's not, businesses wash things because a property manager is contractually required to keep the storefront clean. Either way, somebody's paying. James noticed something else, too. The smart operators in this space weren't chasing one job at a time. They were signing annual contracts with office buildings and condos. The kind of deal that sounds boring to negotiate, but means you stop waking up every Monday wondering if you'll have any income that week. It's the difference between selling a single ice cream cone on a hot day and getting hired by the ice cream shop to deliver ice cream every single Monday for a year. Nobody brags about the second deal, but it's the one that actually lets you sleep. James signed his first annual contract 8 months in, a small commercial plaza near his apartment. It wasn't much, but it was the first time money showed up in his account without him doing anything that week. And that feeling did something to him that no amount of app funding headlines ever had. It made him curious, not about pressure washing specifically, about what else was sitting in plain sight, ignored for the exact same reason. So he started looking. The first thing he found was vending machines. Not the ones from 20 years ago. These took cards, had screens, and could be monitored from a phone without ever visiting the location. A well-placed machine in an office or a gym could generate anywhere from $300 to $1,000 a month in pure profit, depending on foot traffic. James put one machine in a small gym near his old office, then another in a warehouse break room. He wasn't selling snacks, not really. He was renting out corners of buildings that had been generating exactly $0 a month until he showed up with a machine to put on top of them. That was the real product. Permission to occupy a spot nobody else had thought to charge for. And once he understood that, a second business fell into place almost automatically, one that paired perfectly with the first. If a location already trusted him enough to host a vending machine, that same owner would usually say yes to something else sitting quietly in the corner, an ATM. James didn't need to sell anything or serve a single customer. He just kept the machine stocked with cash and collected a fee every time someone used it, sometimes between $1,000 and $3,000 a month per machine in the right spot. It solved a problem that was invisible until you needed it. A bar, a laundromat, a small market where somebody needed cash and didn't have it on hand. Every location he already had became 2 income streams instead of 1, without doubling the time he spent driving around to check on things. His friends still didn't know what to call what he was doing. It didn't sound like a business. It sounded like errands. That's around the time the doubts started creeping in, not from strangers, from people close to him. His father asked, gently but pointedly, when he was going to get serious and go after something real. A friend at a dinner party laughed, not unkindly, when James mentioned the ATM machines, and said something like, "So you're basically a guy who refills money." James almost quit right there. Not because the businesses weren't working. They were, quietly, steadily, but because none of it felt like the kind of success he was supposed to be chasing. There was no headline, no funding round, no app icon. He seriously considered pulling money out of the machines to chase something flashier. A friend was starting a subscription box company. It sounded exciting. It sounded like the kind of thing you'd actually want to explain at a party. He didn't do it. And the reason he didn't is worth sitting with for a second. James did the math on what he actually had. 2 vending machines, 1 ATM, a handful of pressure washing contracts, against what his friend's exciting subscription box company was actually generating, which, when he asked directly, was close to nothing after expenses. The unglamorous machines were quietly outperforming the exciting idea. Not because James was smarter, because almost nobody else wanted to compete for what he was doing, and everybody wanted to compete for what his friend was doing. That was the pattern again. The uglier the business, the smaller the crowd fighting you for it. James decided to stop being embarrassed and start being deliberate. Over the next year, he added 2 more businesses, the kind that made people's eyes glaze over the second he mentioned them, which by now he understood was a feature, not a flaw. The first was bookkeeping. James wasn't a certified accountant, but he understood spreadsheets well enough to help a handful of small business owners who deeply hated managing their own books. He picked up 4 clients, each paying him around $800 a month, for maybe 10 hours of work total each week. What he was really selling wasn't a credential. It was the relief of not having to think about something the owner dreaded. The second was residential cleaning, run through 2 people he hired rather than doing himself. A handful of recurring weekly clients generated steady income on their own, and the secret wasn't cleaning better than anyone else. It was holding on to the same clients month after month instead of constantly chasing new ones. A client who pays you every week for a year is worth more than 10 who hire you once and disappear. By the end of that year, James had 5 small, unglamorous income streams running at once. None of them alone would have impressed anyone. Together, they were quietly outperforming his old salary by a wide margin. Here's the part almost nobody expects. None of these businesses individually made James rich. What made him rich was that they stacked. The same corner that held a vending machine could hold an ATM. The same trust that got him a pressure washing contract could turn into a cleaning contract at the same building. The bookkeeping clients sometimes needed cleaning services too, and James, without ever planning it that way, became the person who quietly handled the unglamorous parts of running a small business. Each piece on its own was replaceable. Together, they compounded, not just financially, but structurally. Losing one client didn't threaten the whole thing, because nothing depended on any single piece working perfectly. That's something a flashy, single-product startup almost never has. One bad month, one lost investor, one algorithm change, and the whole thing can collapse. James's businesses could take a hit anywhere and barely feel it. 3 years in, James added one more piece. The one that, if he's honest, took the longest to work up the nerve for, because it required real money up front. A small self-storage facility, 20 units, converted from an old warehouse space on the edge of town. He'd noticed the pattern building for a while. New apartments kept getting smaller, but people weren't accumulating less. They needed somewhere to put things that didn't fit anymore. And increasingly, his tenants weren't just families between moves. They were small online sellers using units as makeshift warehouses, because it was cheaper than renting real commercial space. The storage units weren't glamorous either. Nobody James knew grew up dreaming of owning a row of garage doors. But they filled up within 4 months and kept generating income whether or not James thought about them on any given day. If you had to guess what actually made someone financially free, an app going viral, or a row of storage units nobody thinks about, which one would you bet on? Most people's gut says the app. James would have said the same thing 4 years earlier. Here's where James's story catches up to itself. Around year 4, his old roommate, the one with the coffee shop app, reached out. The app had shut down 18 months earlier. The funding had run out faster than anyone expected, and after burning through $2 million, there wasn't much left to show for it. He was job hunting again. James didn't feel triumphant about it. If anything, it unsettled him a little, because it confirmed something he'd suspected but never fully said out loud. The exciting path and the reliable path are rarely the same path. His roommate had chased the idea that sounded impressive at a dinner party. James had spent 4 years quietly collecting the ideas nobody wanted to talk about at all. None of this happened overnight, and none of it happened without real discomfort. There were months where a client canceled and James had to hustle to replace the income. There were awkward conversations where he had to explain, again, why he was excited about an ATM machine. There was a period where the storage facility sat half empty, and he genuinely wondered if he'd made a mistake. But none of the individual pieces ever needed to be perfect. They just needed to keep running quietly in the background, contract by contract, corner by corner, while James kept doing the thing almost nobody else was willing to do, showing up for the businesses that didn't sound impressive. If there's one thing James would tell his 29-year-old self, sitting in that apartment feeling sick about someone else's funding announcement, it's this: stop waiting for the idea that sounds exciting enough to bet on. The idea was never the hard part. Discomfort was the hard part. And discomfort, it turns out, is one of the few things in business you can't fake your way around, which is exactly why so few people are willing to sit in it. The businesses nobody wants aren't hiding. They're not secret. They're sitting in plain sight, in parking lots and office corners and laundromat corridors, waiting for someone willing to feel a little embarrassed for a while. James didn't get rich with a brilliant idea. He got rich by being one of the only people willing to do the boring one. If you want more stories that change how you think about money and what actually builds it, subscribe to Finance Juice.